Hi everyone, my name is Daniel Cubas. Welcome to Danny's Corner. Today I want to speak about the state of the nation. I know that I have been focusing on politics as of late, and I'll tell you why in a second. First of all, if you would like to help me to improve this channel in any way, uh, make your suggestions, comments down below on the comment section. As you may have probably noticed already, I have a little bit of a new setup, hoping that you guys are able to see me clearly. Again, I am doing all of this on my own, so I don't know if I'm able to be seen or not. I can just deal with the audio aspect and making sure that this is heard as clearly as possible. If you would like for me to talk about other things, you're more than welcome to, as I said before, make any suggestions, comments. If you would like to help me edit these videos, I would like to definitely make them shorter, so they can address every topic that I am covering, because sometimes I do cover 3 or 4 things at a time, and there would be nothing more that I would like than to break these up into shorter videos and get more people interested in the things that I'm saying. The next thing is, remember today is, or I should say, this whole month of October is National Blindness Awareness Month. And this is having to do with the awareness of blindness all over the United States. And it's a really important thing, not only with physical blindness, but I'm going to extend this as it relates to our topic today to spiritual blindness or political blindness, however you want to see it. So I do want to connect the dots and see where this leads us to. And as I said before, I am a new voice here on YouTube, and I would like to offer my perspective, the way I see things as a blind individual. Enough to say even a blind person can see what's going on. Okay, so where should we start? How did our nation get where it is right now? A lot of people blame Joe Biden, others blame Donald Trump. The truth is, this nation was headed for disaster a long time ago, and those who did not see it, well, they were asleep. And to blame what's going on Donald Trump or Joe Biden or any of our politicians today or prosecutors would be mistaken. And to say that if we only had Democrats running the country, or if we had Republicans running the country, or if this person would step down or the other person would step down, that wouldn't fix the problem. Even if somehow we were to remove all of the politicians that are serving us now, and we were to have an emergency election day because of extreme circumstances and elect new people, I don't think that would solve our problem. because, as I said before, this problem started a long time ago. And it just so happens that when Trump got into the White House, he took the chance of a lifetime. So, this problem that we're facing right now, the overall problem of the United States, would have happened with or without Trump. Perhaps it would have taken a little bit longer for things to come to where they are now without Trump, but it would have happened. Trump just seized the moment, the opportunity, and this is like a nightmare that we can't seem to awaken from. So how did we get here? How did we miss the signs that we were headed for destruction? I believed I mentioned in other videos how America has become a cesspool, and how if we want to fix this nation, we have to do it from the bottom up. We can't be pretending that this is going to go away from the top, that from the top all decisions are going to be made, and somehow this is going to reach the bottom, and this is going to fix everything. We need to do this from the bottom up. So, what happened? Number one, in another video, I mentioned how we were brought up as Americans like spoiled children. We were allowed to get away with tantrums just like a child. We were told that we were special. We were told that there's nothing that we could do wrong. That we were told that this is the greatest nation on earth, just as children are told that they are the best of the best. And that if somebody fights you, you have to fight back. And all of this was done with a religious cloak, if you will, wrapped around us to make it seem more legit, to somehow justify the things that we've been doing. Let us not forget that for a long time, we as a nation took responsibilities that were not ours to take. For example, savior of the world. That's not our calling. That was never our calling. And that's the sad thing, that we were somehow duped into believe that we were the savior of the world, that we were supposed to tell everybody else how to live, that we were to tell everyone democracy is the best, capitalism is the best, and this is what you should do, and able to live safely or whatever. As I said, that was not our role. That was never our role to begin with. And the other thing is, the same thing that we accuse other countries of doing, for example, human rights, we have been violating those perhaps longer than they have. So how can we as a nation say that we are a country? Let's forget about the religious aspect because it gets talked about all the time. And people like blaming Christians and that under God shouldn't be part of the flag or Pledge of Allegiance. That's been talked about over and over. I'll get to that topic, but the thing here is, and nobody seems to talk about this, when the phrases with liberty and justice for all were written, was that liberty and justice for all? That's what people don't talk about. The answer is no. Because justice for all and liberty or freedom didn't include perhaps Native Americans, never included blacks, never included people with disabilities. There was a time that it didn't include women. So who is the all, or who was the all, justice for all? Who is the all that we're talking about here? Definitely those people that say that religious texts have to change to be in sync with the times that we're living in, I think they better check themselves. Because the United States, as a secular nation, as I have said before, as a secular nation, there's a lot to be desired from this country. And nobody is calling out the bad stuff that it has been doing for a long time. We've all known through our history books and other media types what good this country has done, the benefits that this country has given us, all the good that you can think about, all the things that we have received and so forth. But just as there is good within people and bad and everything in between, so happens with nations. And that's one of the things that we choose to ignore. We're blind to it because we want to. Doesn't matter how many times we are told, we choose to ignore it. We choose to think that one party is better than the other one, that one religious group is better than the other one, that certain people from a certain belief system, ideology is better than the other one, and it goes on to gender and other things. I think I've said this before, nobody's better than anybody else, and that's what has been poisoning us, is the ads across TV and other platforms saying if you want to be better at this or that, it's all about competition. And the way this competition is going, this race is going, it's self-destructive and nobody's going to win it. So the best way to solve the problem that we have now is to admit that we have been doing bad things as a whole and as individuals. That we recognize that nobody's better than anybody else. That we recognize that prejudice attitudes, slavery, and the sense of entitlement that a lot of people within the United States have is wrong. That should be taken away. That the desire and the will to conquer has been causing us harm. That as a society, the reason why these companies became big, the tech giants, the medical giants is because there was a nation that did the same thing called the United States. And if the country as a whole starts expanding itself, taking lands that it doesn't belong to them and doing deals that are not fair, are not right, these companies, where do you think they get their inspiration from? Their mother country. And where do you think as individuals we get our sense of entitlement and so forth, regardless of what political affiliation or any other affiliation that you may have? Where do you think we get this sense of entitlement from, that we're better than anybody else? From the country where we were born. I'm specifically speaking about the United States of America. So after we address these issues, that we admit to the rest of the world and to ourselves that we are not the best, that we should change and able to make this country a better one, the next thing is getting our companies in line with that by saying we are no longer going to print, we're no longer going to show video or produce things that may denigrate and lower other people or speak ill about other people intentionally or unintentionally. And this is something that we have to start by doing focus groups. How do you want to be addressed? How can we address you as a community? And I think what's happening now is we are living in a bubble to where every group is trying to fight a battle themselves. And we pay attention to this battle. And we only want to, it seems like this is the bandwagon that we have to get on now. But when we all say, hey, listen, we have all faced prejudice attitudes, regardless if it's racism, discrimination, ableism, it's all part of prejudiced attitudes. And if we unite together and say, no, let's not single one group out and say that we want better conditions for them, and that's it. You have seen other groups, the Me Too movement, the auto industry workers, just a lot of people joining together and they have been asking for better treatment. So what would happen if every one of us joined together and said, we as a whole want better treatment. We want our voice heard regardless of where we come from. Enough is enough when it comes to division. So along with the advertising aspect of it, along with the textbooks, we're trying to whitewash, if you will, the events that have happened. It seems like we need to rewrite history. And we need to talk about the bad things that have happened to the United States, some of the things that have poisoned us as a nation, and some of the things that have made us somewhat great. It's time that we as a nation start by saying we need to cut down on the I'm great attitude and have a attitude of humbleness. That if we're going to do this, we're going to do it not so others can see us, but just because that's who we are. as a nation, as individuals, we're not going to house to house or hospital to hospital to do good deeds just so we can be recognized and seen and stuff like that. That's what we want, but that's not the object that we should be seeking. We should do good because it comes from our hearts, because that's the desire that we want or that we have. And if you have a particular faith in God, such as I do, if we say we are Christians or another philosophy, then that should be respected, as long as we are not harming anybody else with our ideas. We shouldn't be attacked. And when we have people trying to force others to believe the way they do, doesn't matter if it's from the left, right, center, doesn't matter, that should be called on. The reason I'm speaking about the Bible right now is because just as with other groups who have been misunderstood, I think the Bible and God in general have been misunderstood. But what people don't realize is, just as people have taken the Bible out of context and what God is, and the idea of God, the concept of God, so have other things been taken out of place, and people have made assumptions out of those people as well. So, for example, we all know what people say about Christians and Christianity in general. It's a fairy tale. God doesn't exist, so forth and so on. Science doesn't support it. You name it. But even if Christianity was erased from the face of the earth and history books and what have you, let's be honest with ourselves. Let's be honest and say that there would still be prejudiced attitudes in the United States. We would still have hatred. What's said about blind people, such as myself, for example? These people don't know what they're talking about. How can he do this, that, and the other if he's blind? Why should we have wheelchair ramps, etc.? It's like we are a nation driven by let's attack the weakest link. Just because we don't understand their point of view, just because we don't agree with them, just because what they stand for, what they believe, does not make any sense. It's this superior attitude that I've been talking about thus far. We're better because we have this and you don't have this. Doesn't matter if, and it comes from both sides, just like atheists do it, religious people do it, politicians do it, able-bodied people do it, as well as those people who are disabled. All of us have a part to play on the state of our nation and why it has gotten to where it has gotten. Then we have to speak to politicians, not only the current ones, but the upcoming ones, the ones that want to become politicians, that are in school right now. and start educating them better. Stop with this rigid kind of attitude that doesn't lead us anywhere. That there is a way to grow. Even if you're conservative, you have to grow. It's a process. You can't stay locked in the past where I wish things were beautiful as they were 50 years ago. Listen, our childhood is not going to come back. There are moments when I would like to relive my childhood, but that's not coming back. There are moments that I would like to relive. I wish I was back uh, during the time when I was having fun with a couple of friends. That time is not going to come back. We need to face up to the thing that we're going to have some bad times and good times and regular times. And we need to face them with courage. And with each new moment, we need to realize that we're going to make this the best that it can be. It's not always going to be easy. But we're going to remember from now on each passing moment as something that there was a lesson to learn from that. And stop romanticizing the past and remembering it as if it was some sort of either glorious and or tragic. Because when we live in the past and either start talking about it as something glorious and something that we want to come back, or as suffering and it was painful, we need to move away from that and say, how can we learn from these moments, good ones and bad ones? What have I learned from my past? How do I want to change myself? How do I want to change the nation as a whole to learn from this experience? Germany, for example, they could be stuck in the past right now, saying, oh, our nation was bad, we did evil, we killed so many people. That's not going to change. I hope it would change. Instead, they decided to take action. You have museums displaying the horrors of the Holocaust. We have history books reminding people of what happened, not hiding something just to make our nation look good. This helps them to always be aware that we are not powerful, too powerful not for this to happen again. That we are humans trying to run a society, and that just as humans are able to fall and break because we are weak, if bones are able to break, so are we as a nation. And this is what's happened to us. And we don't want to admit it to ourselves. And as I said before, we need to let these politicians know, listen, we're not going to tolerate this anymore. We as a party, regardless of which one it is, we are going to call you out as soon as you start making incendiary comments that divide instead of unite. You can have a different opinion than I am having. But when it comes to threatening people, insulting people, denigrating people, speaking ill about them or their family as if yours was perfect, that's when it's wrong. When you start claiming you're better than the other people, that's when it gets wrong. The moment when you don't hold yourself, your party, your religion, your politics, whatever it is, yourself accountable, that's when it's wrong. Going back to Christianity, even the Bible speaks about personal accountability. And so the other thing I want to say is all these people calling Christians hypocrites and stuff like that, hypocrisy has existed ever since the beginning of time. And as I said before, even if religious beliefs were to be erased out of the face of the earth, that's not going to change anything. Doctors are held to an oath as well. You think they haven't broken that? Some of them? Yes, they have. The people that work for in the healthcare industry that are not doctors but help in other ways, they have done some bad things as well. They're not held to the same standards as religious folks, but they do the same thing. Hypocrisy. Corruption is in politics, yet they're held to a big standard or a great standard, just as spiritual people are. But nobody's saying anything about that. What about as an individual? You're held to a higher standard if you have kids by your mother, by your father. Yet you do bad things and say bad things all the time. And that doesn't mean that your dad or your child is going to stop loving you for that. We realize that we are humans, that we make mistakes, that we will make mistakes, but that we are growing as a nation, we are growing as an individual, and we're going to do the best that we can and able to do that. We need to realize that just as there's hypocrisy, there's corruption, and that's going to happen regardless if there were religion or not. That these are things that can happen in any area in our lives, in science, religion, politics, personal lives, regardless if you grew up in a good household or not. It's bound to happen. Let's not pretend that it doesn't. There's even fake food out there. Wanting the rest of us to believe, oh, it's healthy food or it's real food. It's not. But do you find people criticizing that, writing books on how we should stay away from that and demonizing these people? We need to get our priorities straight. We were not here to cast stones on anybody else. That's not our job. If you are a Christian, your job was never to say you're bad, you're good. Your job was never the left is bad, the right is good. That is not your job to make, or that was not your decision. It was never in our hands to do that. We were given a responsibility to uphold, to protect, to love one another, to serve one another. And now we're acting as if we are God. And we're not. And as I said, we have a misconception about God. And even if God didn't exist, as I have said before, we have misconceptions about everything because we think we know everything about everyone. When we realize that we don't know anything, when we humble ourselves and say, I need to learn more about this, and that. Just because you read something doesn't mean you understand it. Just because you may have a child with a disability doesn't mean you understand it. I have disabilities myself, and sometimes I need to read upon things because there are things I don't understand about myself, even without taking the disabilities into account. Now that I have these disabilities, I have to do more studying. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but again, we think we know everything. We want to know everything. We have been living in a microwave society. We want to know this now. We want this now. And if it takes too long, that means it doesn't exist. If I can't see something, that means it doesn't exist or it's not real. We accuse the religious of being gullible because, how can you believe in something you can't see? So what would you say to a blind person if he or she tells you, well, why should I believe in science, or why should I believe in these things that I'm not able to see just because you are able to see them? Our eyes should not be the only thing that should be considered when measuring things. That's a poor measuring tool. Look where it has gotten us, judging everything just by sight. That's part of the reason why we have racism and other attitudes. In another video, I would like to focus on narcissism and how this is not talked about, and how this can ruin people. And certainly, just as narcissism has ruined a lot of lives personally, we know now the damn. If we didn't know then, because we were not aware of it or what it was, now we know what it can do. There are certain traits of narcissism, and again, I'm going to talk about this in another video, but I don't think you can't diagnose somebody officially if you're not a doctor or whatnot, but I think there are telltale signs to say, hey, he's blind or he has autism or whatnot. There are signs, and there are clear signs that Donald Trump is one of those individuals that has some narcissistic traits. Grandiose. He alone can fix everything and anything. There has been nobody better than him. There's nobody better than him. All of these things and others. And if you didn't believe individuals when they told you about their partner or whatnot, how they destroyed their lives, I hope now you realize the extent of how these kind of individuals can ruin, we can say now, even entire nations such as the United States. But as I said before, even if Donald Trump would have not played anything in this whole debacle, it would have still happened. So there is an article I would like to read some of it to you so you are aware not only of what Donald Trump is doing, but this is also to show you that as a blind person, I'm also able to follow news just like the rest of you. So you may know about this, but this is just to show you, again, blind people are aware. And I'm going to leave the link to this article so you can see it yourself with your own eyes, since most people require proof. If not, they don't believe. Trump attacks New York court for fraud. Trial that threatens his business career. Ex-president rails against judge and prosecutors accusing him of a years-long fraud they say inflated his wealth by as much as $2.2 billion. And the following says, and this is dated New York, November 2nd, 2023. Donald Trump attacked the judge in New York and prosecutors who had charged him with orchestrating a years-long fraud on Monday, as state prosecutors accused the former president of using this to inflate his wealth as much as $2.2 billion. Trump arrived at a New York court just a few miles south of Trump Tower on Monday for the first day of the fraud trial that could see the former president and his family business paying hundreds of millions of dollars in damages, and that has already threatened to end his business career in the city where it started. The New York Attorney General, Letitia James, has accused Trump of using false and misleading financial statements from 2011 to 2021 to make himself and his business as wealthier, helping him broker deals and obtain financing. Based on her office's 3-year investigation, James is arguing that Trump owes at least $250 million for committing fraud. A mass of TV cameras and reporters lined up outside the courthouse anticipating the arrival of Trump. This is a continuation of a single greatest witch hunt of all time, Trump said as he headed into court. And there's a video here. And it furthermore says, Trump defends state financial statements in spite of the obvious. It's interesting how we have it's interesting how we have come to this, how this has become our daily bread. I'm going to end this video as it's getting too long. If there were any things that I misread, it's because as I am reading to you guys, I'm listening to whatever I use a speech synthesizer. I'll talk more on how I do things on another video. Again, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to know. There's a reason why I made this YouTube channel and why I'm posting this on Facebook. There's a lot of things I want to do. I just need a little bit more time and a lot of your help. Thank you for listening to me. If you have gotten to the end of this video, and I hope that this message, although it was long, that you have been able to follow it. I hope that you were able to see me. And I hope that as a nation, we can finally wake up from this nightmare. That we get to know as a society, once and for all, that even if we elected politicians, that's not going to work. Even if we admonished the politicians that we have now to stop, that wouldn't work. How can we get a good politician or a good police department, a good sheriff, what have you, if everything that America has to offer is bad? In theory, that is. As I said at the beginning of this video, America has become a cesspool, and we can't find anything good whatsoever when we start reaching our hand down there. It's time to clean the swamp meaning the nation. It's time for us to reevaluate where we stand, where we're going. And it's time for us to make a conscious decision. I want to change. And then look for groups that are making that change. Small organizations, and join and help out. We have had too many alarms, if you will, that say you're at the brink of utter destruction, and you're still there's still time to go back and do something. If the pandemic didn't unite us, if September 11th didn't unite us enough, if these mass shootings haven't united us, what is it going to take? If the events on January 6th didn't unite us to say enough is enough, what is it going to take? What major event is going to have to happen in the United States so we can finally awake? We are asleep. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for those of you who have subscribed, for your support. Thank you very much for the views. nice day.